Hi, I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And we're the Recovery Gals.
We are two gals on a mission to shine the light of truth on those who might be struggling with addiction.
And offer the hope that recovery can give you.
Jen, we had Adey-Jones on our podcast. And
Yes.
If there is one word to describe her, I would say radiant.
I would agree. She specializes in codependency, narcissism, recovery, all of the things. And it spoke so close to my heart because I have multiple friends who kind of are in this now. So I just hope that you guys take a listen and just really take it for what it is. It's actually really amazing.
I think one of the things that you see when we talk to her is just there's this lightness and this freedom about her. And so I'm just,
Because she's been through it.
She's been through it. Yes, she's been through it. She's a practitioner, a 3P practitioner, and she's a coach. She has a lot to say about codependency, and we're really excited to share that with you.
First of all, I will say that I am a coach and I specialize in working with people with codependency and narcissistic abuse, because as you will learn, that was my specialty. That's how I grew up and what I struggled with for the first 50 years of my life. So I'll start at the beginning. So I was born in Wales, a tiny little part of the UK. And it was a very sort of church-going or actual chapel-going Bible community. And I always say it was a puritanical sort of place to live, but my mother was not puritanical. She was a maverick that danced to the beat of her own drum. And she was just, it was the 50s, but she wasn't June Cleaver. She was definitely, as I say, just didn't fit into that sort of community. She was sort of before her time. And I just want to qualify this with, she had a difficult childhood herself. She didn't feel loved. And I think that definitely impacted her choices in life. So when I tell the story, it might sound sad to some people, but I don't regret any of it. I didn't love it at the time, but on reflection, I love that I went through everything I went through, because it's made me who I am today. And it's helped me do the work that I do. And I love what I do. So to give you a bit of background, so I was born in 1959. So as I said, it was the sort of late 50s. And I was the product of an affair that my mother had with my father for about 8 years. And we lived in the countryside and he lived in a little village with his wife and his children. And, my mum, unfortunately, she was a little hybrid of a codependent and a narcissist. So she settled for that relationship. It was an affair. He only saw her once a week and we never met him. I mean, we had to sleep in little trailers in our backyard because my mother was, trying to make money, and she used our little house, our cottage, for a bed and breakfast. So originally, and so I definitely felt this longing from a very early age of like, who is this man? Who is this man that comes once a week and we're not allowed anywhere near him? And then also, when I started going to the village school, actually, I'll back up a little bit before that. I do remember once, one of my earliest memories, I must have been about 4, because my mother was quite heavily pregnant with my younger brother. And a woman came to visit us. And the woman was very, very upset, visibly upset. And there was words exchanged and she was crying. And I remember feeling really sorry for her. And I was eating a little biscuit at the time, or a cookie, as we say here. And I tried to give her my cookie to calm her down. And she reacted like, get her away from me. And I remember in that moment thinking, there must be something terribly wrong with me if I've hurt this woman so much. And I didn't know the intricacies of what was going on, but I knew enough that that I just felt incredible amount of shame that I had hurt this woman so much. And then when we went to the local school where my father lived in the village, all the community knew. It was a tiny village. I mean, I think there were like 12 children in my class, and everybody knew we were the illegitimate and the B word. And teachers, you know, it was a 3 schoolroom little school, so there were just 3 teachers. And I had this incredible feeling of, I looked up the word illegitimate, meant I wasn't as legitimate as other people. I'm very literal still to this day. Right. So I thought, oh my God, I should never have been born. I hurt people just by existing. And I'm not as legitimate as other people. I'm not as valuable I felt like I'd sort of snuck in here. I had this sort of feeling of, I don't want to take up too much space. I don't want to be, take up any space. I didn't want to have a voice. It was very safer to stay hidden because the community was very judgmental towards us. And then when I was about 5 years old, this coincided when I went to the local school. Again, I would pass my father on the street and he would just look over me. And it's like, and I just felt like you just have a fantasy, especially when you hear other kids talking about their parents, that if he can't love me, it must mean because something's wrong with me. I'm too fat, too ugly, too stupid, too whatever. And I mean, obviously as an adult, in fact, I shouldn't say obviously, because quite honestly, I carried that belief through even when I was adult. I didn't question that thinking. I still carried those beliefs about myself, not realizing, hang on a minute, it had nothing to do with you. He just was incapable of loving in that way. So, going to school was very painful. I felt like, as I would say, it was just being completely ignored by this man that was your biological father. And then at that time, my mother, just circumstances, bed and breakfast was a seasonal thing in Wales, because just like where you live, we have rainy, snowy winters. And so she sort of fell into this thing where at that time they were closing the big mental institutions down. I mean, the massive thousands of patients, and they were putting them into smaller, what they call care in the community. And they would pay people to have these residents live with you. And my mother had worked in a hospital, so she sort of was very nurturing and knew how to do that. But as a child, it was terrifying. I mean, a 5-year-old child seeing people with very distorted faces and behaviors and things like that. So I was just a really unhappy, scared child, I mean, putting it bluntly. I didn't feel that society was judgmental and dangerous, and I felt like my home life was dangerous, and there were other things in the community. I think that unfortunately some predators see fatherless children as easy victims, and so we had that as well. So but I always had this longing for my father. My older sister was sort of like, he doesn't deserve to have me. Whereas I had this, like, if I had a father, my life would be better. We wouldn't live like this. And so that's where I really got my sort of codependency in my relationships. Like, if I have a man in my life will be better. And that was also the blueprint for being attracted to narcissistic, unavailable men. Because I always say as children, we want to sort of a redo, or as adults, we want to go back and redo that challenging relationship. So I was very much, wanting to redo with a different ending. So I was deliberately choosing men like my father to win over. And then I was proving my self-worth. And that was a pattern I just continued through my life. And, it was, it's pretty unbelievable. But I hit a point when I was 19 where I just didn't think I wanted to live anymore. I was like, and again, I didn't blame society, I blame myself. I don't have what it takes to survive this life. Other people seem to be doing okay, not me. And then I came on holiday to America when I was 21. And there was a very different world. There was all this self-help and all these workshops, and I found this little sort of metaphysical bookshop that, and I remember the first workshop I saw was Healing the Shame That Binds. And I'm like, oh my God, shame, that's me,
sign me up.
And that was with John Bradshaw. And then that started at 21, I started on this spiritual path and trying to make sense of why I was here. And that was the other thing. My mother was an atheist when we were younger. So I didn't have a sense of God. I had nothing sort of stable to lean on, I felt. So that was like the answer's here. Something, obviously my wisdom was saying the answer is here.
Yeah.
But I was a sort of hard nut to crack because I kept reading, oh, we're all equal, we're all, the same. And I'm like, yeah, but not me. You don't know. I got here by mistake.
Right.
So, so that was the start of that. And then by the time I was turning 30, I just realized that I was not living a healthy life on any level. My relationships, my father, even though I'd never met him, I always said he walked into every relationship I ever had. And so I started therapy and I contacted my father. I met him for the first time when I was like a week before I turned 30. And it was an interesting situation, to say the least. I realized at that moment that I was never going to get the father I craved.
Yeah.
He said to me, oh, I hear you live in America. And I said, yes. He goes, oh, you're an actress? Because I was living in Hollywood at the time. And I was like, no, I'm too shy to be an actress, but I wanted to be a costume designer so that you'd see my name at the end of films. His response was, you needn't have bothered, love. I don't watch films. So in that moment, but it was okay, because in that moment, I sort of got it. I thought, oh, he doesn't understand. He just doesn't understand. He doesn't. I wasn't angry, but it released something in me. There was a freedom that came up in me. I let go of that desire to be, loved and nurtured by a father figure. So that was sort of part of my journey. And then anyway, long story short, I did a degree a master's in spiritual psychology. Still, things were better. And I was in therapy for 30 years. So I was definitely functioning better. But it was when I came across the principles, I read a book in 2009 and something hit me in a different way, just the languaging. I was reading everything I'd read before and all the other spiritualities that I've been involved in, but the penny dropped. And I had spent years trying to change my thinking so I would feel differently. And when I learned that I didn't have to change my thinking, I just had to basically ignore it. It wasn't telling me the truth of who I was.
Yeah.
That's where the life-changing moment came for me, where I started to separate from this story of how broken I was and who I thought I was. And as I got distance from that and really settled into who we all know we are at our essence, these beautiful, magnificent beings, I started to feel more confident and resilient. And I failed to mention, when I came across the book, it was when I was getting a divorce after 18 years of a very painful relationship. And that's all I'll say about it. But it was very painful. And I had a very hard time letting go, even though it was painful. Partially because I wanted to give my children what I hadn't had as growing up, which was a 2-parent family in a normal house. And the other part was because I was so dependent on my ex. I felt that he had all the strength, he had all the resilience, all the power. And when I realized that was a myth and that I had everything inside of me, I started having the courage to separate. So that's sort of it in a nutshell there.
Wow.
That is fantastic.
And honestly, amazing. So there's so many things that
I know. I was like, oh, I should have taken notes.
I want to touch on. Gosh, I don't even know where to.
Well, first of all, we know very much what codependency is. Well, we know it. You've researched it. Would you just kind of give a brief, if possible, definition of codependency just for listeners that may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think codependency, the word only came about in, I think, this early 80s. Right when I was in coming to California, and I'd heard this word, and I ended up in these, 12-step programs for codependency, coda meetings. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There are other people in the world that feel the way I do or show up in the world like I do. So number one is, for sure, we have low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. We've often grown up in an environment, a dysfunctional environment, or we had a narcissistic parent, and we learn adaptive coping mechanisms that we innocently carry through life. So we, because we have this terrible sense of low self-esteem, not being lovable, we're constantly looking for validation on the outside, reassurance that we are lovable, that we're important, and that we've been seen and heard. We have been trained, again, especially if we've had a narcissistic parent, to put their needs ahead of our own. So we're very much that people pleaser. Other people are more important than we are. We put ourselves at the bottom rung of the ladder all the time. The other one is, we have a lot of shame around being our neediness. So we try and appear as needless and wantless. We're cool, even though we're not. Mm-hmm. That's another trait we have. We feel responsible for other people's feelings. Like I said, with my, with the woman, that my father's wife that came to visit us, I felt responsible for her feelings, mm-hmm. whereas really my mother and father's actions were what was causing pain, not well, I'm sure my existence also, but I took it all on myself. Mm-hmm. We tend to have weak boundaries because I should have said, at the core of codependency, there are two issues going on. One is incredible low self-esteem or lack of self-worth, and the other one is the fear of abandonment. Mm. And that also comes from having that narcissistic parent or an addicted parent or a parent that's just not there. There's that intermittent, parenting. So we grow up sort of hyper vigilant and very, very, sort of, we want to stay safe because as children, our safety does depend on an adult or a caregiver being there. So if we think that if we behave a certain way, we're going to secure that person, they're not going to abandon us. Well, as we know, as adults, we can't be abandoned. We've got everything we need inside us, but we carry that fear of abandonment with us. So we have very weak boundaries. It's like if somebody violates our boundaries, we go, that's okay. And then we move it back. Mm-hmm. And all we're doing is teaching other people to just keep pushing and ignoring our boundaries and stomping all over them. But we have this habit of moving that boundary. I also knew that I felt so broken that I felt like I didn't fit in with a healthy person. So I was constantly attracted to other people that I thought were broken too. It's like, you're my tribe, you get me and I get you. So we tend to have that habit. And again, because of that fear of abandonment, we stay in unhealthy relationships that are toxic. Mm-hmm. And we keep, going into denial, or as I say, moving those boundaries, or being overly accommodating to not be alone because we fear being alone. And then we judge ourselves for being weak and pathetic because we've allowed somebody to emotionally abuse us. I don't work with really physical abuse. I mean, even though there can be some physical abuse in the work that I do with my clients, I work mostly with people that suffer from codependency and narcissistic abuse. So I should have mentioned that. I call myself a narcissistic abuse recovery coach and codependency recovery coach. But still, that shame you feel because you know that you're not being respected, you're not being valued, you're not being cherished, you're not being loved, you're not being treated with respect. You're in a one-way relationship where it's all about their needs, not yours. I'm trying to think what else. And physical ailments, we feel anxious. We're constantly on that high alert, as I said, trying to take the temperature of the room. Are we safe? Are we keeping everybody happy? you know.
Would you say that, I mean, I'm just, everything that you're saying, I'm like, like, I agree. Like, yes, you're describing it. I always describe it as like, I felt like this, you have such eloquent words for what I would say is, I always felt like this little puppy just sitting at the table, like just waiting for somebody to like even look at it, acknowledge it, give it a scrap of food. Like if I got that, I was like, okay, I'm all right, you know, and to just constantly put yourself there and just think, oh my gosh, everybody's better. I'm the weak link. I'm broken. I don't belong. I agree with all that, but I don't think I actually saw that I was living in that mindset until maybe a few years ago.
Really?
And I didn't realize how much of my power I was giving away to other people. And just thinking like, oh, well, at least they're still around, or at least and I was coming out of addiction, alcohol, substance abuse disorder. And so I just felt so much shame to begin with. It was like, oh my gosh, that anybody's in my life. I can't believe it, you know? And so just coming out of that and just being like, oh, wow. I just found it. Do you find that some people that you're coaching don't even understand that they're underneath a narcissistic abuser or a narcissist, I should say?
Well, can we, yes, I appreciate that question, but can you go back and just give us a definition of what you would say a narcissist is?
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe give us.
We're doing definitions.
Abuse. Well, just in case our listeners don't know or understand, you know, they may be in this situation and have no idea that this is actually what it is and there's a name for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to say that was a great question too, Carrie, and I'd love to come back to that. Yeah. So we can come back to that. But for me, yeah, a lot of my clients do come to me because they know, they've researched, they know that their partner's behaving. And again, I want to qualify, because if we have a 3P community here, I'm not labeling or diagnosing anybody. I'm using these terms as a shorthand to describe a set of very predictable behaviors.
Yes.
And they are. I mean, like I just read off the codependency and you're like, oh my God, I can identify with all of those.
So much.
So it's just a shorthand. So when somebody is displaying narcissistic thinking and behavior, they can show up in different ways, because there's like 3, I would say, distinct narcissistic personality types. And the classic one we think of is that grandiose, I'm better than everybody, I'm superior, I'm the only one that is right, everybody else is wrong. There's that sort of, you know, super concerned about image, and you better make them look good. Even as a parent, it's like your child is a reflection of them. They're not their own little person. So we've got that one, and where they're also sort of a lot of ego, need to dominate and control, will bully, lie, and manipulate to get their needs met. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like on the outside. They look like they're very powerful, confident, strong people. But what I always point out is they're actually living in a very, very, very fear-based bubble, where they can't trust that we live in a benevolent world where everybody's our equal and we don't need to bully and dominate and control to get our needs met. So even though we innocently are attracted to them as codependents because we think, oh my God, you complete me. You're that strong, powerful, confident type that I'm not.
Yeah.
You're actually just adopting a very needy, fearful person or allowing them into your life. So I think that's really important for people to recognize and have compassion for, because they don't have deep, reciprocal, loving relationships. It's all based on a power struggle. Mm-hmm. So that's the classic narcissist as we know it. And the next one is that's the overt narcissist. Then we have the covert narcissist, who is more of the I'm special, my needs come before everybody else's because I'm a victim and nobody understands me. And I had a painful childhood and you've got to take care of me. And, oh, so what if I'm drunk every day? But, you know, I need you. You've got to, you know, it's a very sort of more of a fragile, which, I mean, I'm sorry, but as codependents, we love to nurture. We love to have a role. We love to give others what we wish we had received, that love and attention. And so, and those are the sort of, but again, it's still, the bottom line is it's a one-way street. You're the one that's always giving them what they need. And they, as I say, pull us in from playing the victim. My ex-wife didn't understand me. My boss fired me. He's a jerk. He didn't understand. So they're always blaming everybody else. And then we have what we call the malignant narcissist, who is the one that actually, unfortunately, really derives pleasure from inflicting pain on another person. I mean, they're definitely more in the sort of sociopathic and psychopathic thing, but they will torture you deliberately to feel powerful and feel in control. And they can be very, very, very cruel. So those are the, I mean, I say the first two I described as there's more of an innocence to it. They're just locked in this, you know, as I say, fearful, thought-based little, you know, they're like children. It's like, I want what I want when I want it. And they'll throw tantrums if they don't get it. But the malignant is sort of sadistic. And it's, you know, and often, especially in 3P community, I have people coming to me saying, well, if I'm living in the feeling of my thinking, then I should be able to put up with this. And I'm like, no, you know, if you've got a black eye and a broken arm because somebody's physically beating you up, nobody's going to say it's just your thinking. And the same thing when somebody is psychologically and emotionally abusive, you are being wounded by that. It doesn't break you. We all know that inside ourselves, we are resilient and we're strong and we can't be broken, but we can be bruised and battered from another person's behavior or the environment we're in. So I really wanted to make that distinction.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's great because I'm sitting here thinking, now also I would maybe qualify myself as a hypochondriac, but I totally would identify with the covert narcissist, especially in addiction. Being like, I always call it like, you just kind of, a red flag to me is when I start to go down the road of self-pity. And so it seems a little bit like some of that covert narcissism, at least that's where I was kind of drawing. It's like, kind of like, I didn't realize I was doing this, but it was all about me. And I would use all these experiences in my life to almost blame, like not take my responsibility in my choices. And I would use it as blame. Anyway, all that to say.
Yeah. I'd just like to address that for a second, because I will often have people say to me, you know, because I do these 6-week courses that are very sort of, you know, really lay out. I mean, I get like these other people go, oh my God, you know, because I present for the first half an hour information, and then we do a Q&A for the second half an hour. But somewhere around like week 3 or 4, where I'm really describing, well, for week 1, I described the spiritual understanding, I call the principles. Then I go into describing narcissism, and then the following week, codependency. And then the 4th week is the dance, the codependent narcissistic dance. And then should I leave or should I go? And then the final one is how to create healthy, happy relationships. But somewhere around like week 2 or 3, or especially after they've heard about the narcissist, everybody goes, oh my God, I think I'm a narcissist. Oh. and I always say, you know, if you're here, guaranteed you're not a narcissist.
Right.
Because a narcissist would never say, oh God, I think I'm a narcissist.
Right. Oh, you're right. I mean, so many people have told me this, but you're right. I mean,
we can have overlapping tendencies. Like I said, you know, my mother was very codependent in some ways and really narcissistic. I mean, for a mother not to realize that, hang on a minute, you know, your 3 kids might actually want to meet their father. So it's not like he was still around.
Yeah.
But she couldn't think on that level. She lacked that empathy to understand what it felt as a child. And I still love her to death. Well, she's passed now, but I did. But I'm just saying there were elements there of she was so consumed with her own needs and wants that she couldn't have empathy for her children in that situation. So anyway, I love that. I love it when people go, "Oh God, I'm narcissistic."
I take everything on somehow.
Yeah. But we all are to a degree. And the thing is, I actually say to my clients, you need to raise your level of entitlement. That's the other thing. Narcissists lack empathy and they have massive amount of entitlement. Now, when we are down here, well, nobody can see it, but like say we have zero entitlement, we're a beacon for a narcissist who wants everything their way.
Yeah.
So when we raise our level to a healthy level of entitlement, narcissists bypass us because they're like, well, hang on a minute, I'm not going to get everything out of you. So they bypass us and go for somebody that's got no entitlement.
Interesting.
So we should have a healthy amount.
Can you tell us, I know that you touched on the codependent narcissistic dance.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit? And what does that all entail?
Well, sort of what I just said right now. It's like we have as a codependent rather, we have like a wound. Mm-hmm. And you know, the narcissist's teeth match our wound. I always say it's like it's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And often because, as I said, we've grown up in an environment where whether our parent was a narcissist or an addict or even unavailable because of mental illness or because they died, a child experiences that as abandonment. So we have this wound from childhood about feeling abandoned and unlovable. And so what happens is, and so again, as I said, we're trained to take care of everybody else and try and secure attachment. So we're these good little girls with no needs and wants. So please come be with me. Now, so with the narcissist, all they care about is their needs and wants. It has to be a one-way street. They call it narcissistic feed. They gobble up. People are sort of like, I know this is sounding extreme, and a lot of 3P people will take issue with this, but they're functioning on a very sort of primal level of I got to get my needs met. And the people they encounter, it's not a real deep connection. It's all about them getting their needs met. Mm-hmm. So clearly, if you've got a very hungry, needy, got to get everything my way, of course, the perfect balance is somebody that's needless and wantless and will make you the most person in their life.
Yeah,
so that's that initial connection. But there's also narcissists are incredibly charming and they love bomb in the beginning. They seduce you. So who's going to be the victim of seduction like that, but somebody that feels unloved and unwanted and uncared for? So they fall for that charm more than anybody else would. I mean, I know now, I used to say, if I'm attracted to you, you're a narcissist. Otherwise, I knew it. But now I meet narcissists and there's zero attraction. It's like, I'm like, oh, I know you, I got your number. And they could never seduce me now because my self-esteem is so, high because of who I really know I am, which is this incredible spiritual being. I'm not this little persona called Del. So that confidence comes through. I'm not needing the outside validation or that love from the outside anymore.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah, the dance is very, so you can see how that initial attraction is played out. And then there's things that go on within the dance, like the intermittent reinforcement. Because again, it's I know a narcissist man that was with a friend of mine who actually said to her, oh, we call it slap and pat. They slap you and then they pat you going there, and then slap you again and there. That's called intermittent reinforcement. Mm-hmm. So you are on the end of that hook with them. It's like they're so loving with you, and the next thing they're so mean, and you're dying for that love again. You just you keep going back to get the love again, and that keeps you psychologically in they call it Stockholm syndrome. It's like, you know, if you've been held hostage and your aggressor, you know, is aggressive one minute and loving the next, you bond with them. So there's a psychological bonding that happens. It's trauma bonding. And then there's just other things that they do in the, you know, the gaslighting. You think you're going crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I had a client once who was desperate to get out of her marriage, but her partner had convinced her that she was insane and she could never cope with the children. And so therefore she would lose her children unless she stayed. It took a while for her to really get to see that, hang on a minute, I've got everything inside me. I am a great mom. And she finally had the courage to leave, and she didn't lose her kids, and she's a great mom, and she's so much happier. But it took a while because of the brainwashing of, you know, you should kill yourself. You're worth nothing. You know, I even heard stuff like that, you know, you kill yourself. I mean, what a thing to say to somebody. Horrible. So yeah, it's a really sort of intricate dance that you start getting. So
yeah. And then it almost sounds like the superpower. I don't know why I'm in the superpower mood, but like the Wonder Woman power is that you come into this identity of like a new identity of yourself. Is that like,
excuse me.
I mean, I heard you say like the kind of, I'm full, I'm complete, I'm whole as I am. I think I'm putting words in your mouth, but to that degree, because I know for me personally, when I found my voice, when I finally was like, I have authority, I have agency over my life. And I started to trust myself because I hadn't done that for a really long time. Some of that sounds kind of like that spiritual work for the 3P community.
Yeah, well, again, as I said, I'd heard all of this since I was 21, but I heard something, and it really was the thought connection that the 3P community talks about that was the game changer for me, because I was always trying to feel better, another qualification, another training, another whatever. I call them band-aids on my wall. It was like, this will fix me. Now I'll be confident. And what happened, as I said, it happened naturally. So that sort of, you know, persona that I created through my thinking, I'm weak, I'm pathetic, I'm unlovable, I'm scared, all that stuff I listened, all that thinking I'd listened to over the years. And I created this thing called Dell that was this solid person in my mind. And then when I realized that, oh my God, all that thinking is just energy moving through me. And I've just grabbed onto a few labels, stuck them all together, created this lovely little person called Dell from them that feels really solid.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh my God, that's not solid. You know, I am literally infinite potential. I can be anything I want to be. As I started letting go of that image of myself, I naturally sort of fell back into who I am. I didn't go trying to find it. It's never an effort. I wasn't efforting. I just stopped listening to the nonsense. As I separated from the nonsense, I started like dropping back into who I naturally am on the inside. And I started showing up differently. And it was a miracle. It was nothing. Whereas as I said, I spent years thinking that the change would come when I changed that thinking about myself, which is sort of what happened. But I didn't change the thinking. I just let go of the thinking. And I settled back into really who I was. And as I sort of began to sort of, it's in all of us. It's nothing you have to search for or gain. It's already there. We've just covered it over with layers and layers of old conditioned thinking and belief that we're these set little personalities, which is completely, I was shy, fearful, an introvert, and now I'm an extrovert that has fun and enjoys life. So, you know, And that wasn't a choice of I'm going to be this new person. I just tapped into who I really was already before the stories and the layers.
Wow. I'm just letting that sink in a minute. Sorry. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that's, I mean,
powerful.
I keep talking about, I use the word freeing and liberating probably too much, but that, I mean, that's the essence of it, right? Is that, and I hate labels. Like, I hate labels. And I feel like you've put into words maybe exactly why I hate them. It's just, it feels so limiting.
Yeah.
And we're limitless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And something, it's gone now, but it'll pop back up again. So
based on me all the time.
Yeah, I know. And I used to chase it. I'd be like, oh, what's wrong? Why can't I remember it?
Right.
It'll pop back in again.
Yes.
It's there. Oh, that's what it was. As I stopped seeing myself as this fearful, weak, pathetic person, I had a great front. I used to be a costume designer. I looked like I had it together on the outside. This is where I was living from, within this crazy head of mine. But once I started separating from that thinking, I realized, and I really started to drop into who I really am, experiencing who I am naturally. I started to just be less dependent on love coming from the outside in, validation coming from the outside in. I mean, I used to take everything so personally because I had to be perfect. It's like, oh my God, you saw me in this light and you didn't see me as perfect. But now it's like, that's just your thinking. You're entitled to that.
Right.
You know? I'm not hanging in there just desperate for, and knowing that I'm made of love was huge as well. Knowing that love is already within me. It's not coming from the outside in. That again stopped me being dependent and, oh my God, like, and what I was just saying about the insecurity, you complete me. I didn't need so that was huge as well. So yeah, I just naturally sort of showed up differently.
So how many years have you been practicing well, you kind of have said you've started reading about all of this and then one day it kind of just sat with you, but I'm thinking after all these years of kind of practicing this and really settling into yourself, do you ever have days where it's just like old thinking creeps back in? Or okay, I was like, because when you said perfection, I'm like, well, I want to do this and I want to do it perfectly. So could you please outline this for me? Give me the check.
Do you have a checklist?
Do you have a checklist?
I was just on a coaching call before this and sharing with my client that, because I always say our suffering, I would say the majority of our suffering does not come from other people and the circumstances in our lives. We know that. It comes from the resistance to what is. And we have resistance to our thinking. It's like, I should be further along. Oh my God, I fell backwards. Oh my God, don't I know this now? Why am I still doing this? I never have that. When I catch myself in my codependency, which I did last week, I was in a situation where I want to be, it involved a family member that is a little bit younger than me, not that much younger. I'm 63, he's in his 50s, so he's not a child, but they have been caught stealing, basically, from me and my siblings. We own a company together. And I actually felt sorry for him, and I felt horrible that he was suffering. And that's my codependency, because there wasn't that part of me that had a healthy sense of entitlement of like, it's okay to hold their feet to the fire. Right. They stole. They need to know, they need to acknowledge it and pay back. But I was in my codependency of like making excuses for them. Oh God, I feel so bad. And it's like, but I caught it. And I laughed. I thought, oh my God, here we go again. It makes me humble. There is no perfection. There is that conditioned thinking that I spent most of my life, in. Yeah. It's going to show up, and it's okay. And I love what Sid said about that, not being afraid of our experiences. Now, if I was afraid of my experience, I would have gone, oh God, why is this happening again? Oh my God, I'm losing myself. I'm negating my own needs to take care of another. And I would have gone like that. I was just like, oh God, this is funny. It's so sneaky, isn't it? It just showed up again. So I find it humorous when I catch myself.
But so it's a great reminder of actually how far you've come in your healing process, in your own journey, because you catch yourself, you know, almost immediately. And it's like the light bulb goes off and you're like, this doesn't feel well within me. Like there's something wrong here. I feel it, me personally, in my body when something just doesn't feel right. It's like, so we were talking about that earlier, the body keeps the score. So I just feel it inside. And I resonate so much with your story because I had a very chaotic childhood growing up as well. So I am extremely codependent, and I was totally attracted to people who unattainable people. And it has taken so many years of therapy and healing from that it is just like, it's amazing when you can catch yourself falling into old patterns.
And I want to just comment on that, because that's so many of us do that are codependent. We are attracted to difficult, challenging, unavailable men. And part of that is because our self-esteem is so low that we need to prove our worth. So it's like if we can win over or conquer a difficult person, then our self-esteem goes up. I mean, it doesn't really. It's false. It's false self-esteem. But we feel in that moment, we feel, oh, I'm worthy. I didn't just win over a mediocre person. I won over a real challenge.
Right.
So we have to cop to that.
Yes.
Do we really need to prove our self-worth by winning over a difficult, unlovable person, or a person that's unable to love us in the way we need to be loved, or desire to be loved? So it's that sort of often people that have codependency are overachievers, because we need to keep proving ourselves. So we're either,
hello, it's me. It's me.
Great A students, perfectionists, and we've just got that thing because we just got that drive to keep filling ourselves up with we're worthy,
improving myself.
Yeah, improving ourselves.
But the thing is that, and also on a side note to that, is that my environment growing up was so chaotic that I feel like looking at potential partners, I was naturally drawn to that chaos that they brought to my life. And so that was a huge realization for me as well. Like, I craved that chaos because it's all that I knew.
It was normal.
It was normal.
I used to say, when I first met my current partner, who I've been together with for 12 years, we're not married, but and he knows this, I tell him, so I'm not divulging any secrets here. But when I first met him, I remember thinking, oh, death by boredom. No big drama here. This is not fast. Because I was used to that fire and all that stuff. And I was like, oh God. But you know what happened? I stuck in there for two reasons, because I thought, I am a single mother. I need to raise my children without drama. So he's safe for now. He's okay, because I don't have that sort of insane attachment I used to have in the past. He's just a nice guy to walk through life with for a while I raise my children. And then after about a year, I was like, oh my God, I really love him. Life.
He's normal, and this is what normal looks like.
Is there normal?
Yeah, but there really isn't normal. But this is what being in love with a healthy, whole human being feels like. Yes. And the further along that I get in my own therapy, the more that I crave that.
Yes. Well, and because what happened is I realized after a year, oh my God, I've been myself. I haven't been twisting myself into a pretzel to make somebody happy. I've been the best mother I've ever been in my life because I'm so present. And I've been able to work on my career because my energy and my mind is not full of the chaos of a crazy toxic relationship. So when I look back, I was like, oh my God, this feels so good. It was really, now if you said to me at the beginning of the relationship, you've got to sign up for this because this is what you're going to get, I probably wouldn't have trusted it.
Right.
It's because of the experience I had, I was able to say, wow. So when I do coach other people, I'll often say, if you feel bored in the beginning, it's a good sign. Don't go for
yes.
that. Fireworks is just a reactivation of an old wound. That they call it chemistry. It's just somebody's gone and stuck their finger in your wound and just,
right. And it's like those relationships that start off like, you know, just fire and everything is amazing. And then they, you know, essentially, from what I've seen, a narcissist try to reel you in really quickly and they want a commitment almost immediately. And so it's, I think that's one of the red flags, you know. I think that's a big thing that we should talk about is red flags, you know, to try to, if you are codependent, how can you avoid a narcissistic abusive relationship?
Yeah, well, I love what you're saying, and it's so true. First of all, when you first meet a narcissist, number one, they do this with everybody. They're so charming, and as I said before, they love bombing you, and you are getting everything you've ever craved. You're getting seen, valued, heard, loved, or that's what it feels like. You don't realize you're just being manipulated the hell out of.
Yeah.
The other thing is they have like they're not really seeing you. I mean, they're seeing that you look perfect. Like, oh my God, that's the perfect person that's going to make me look good if I've got her on my arm. So they have this picture frame they lay on top of you. And you sort of fit in that frame of their ideal. They're always looking for idealized love. They don't want real love where there's warts and all. They want the idealized love, the perfect love. So what happens is once they've put that picture frame and you fit into that picture frame of the idealized love, they want to secure it immediately. So the ring will be on your finger within a few weeks. Happened to me. And you're so flattered because they're telling you they've been looking for you all their life and you're the one. You are special. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that when you're codependent? So that's a major red flag. And then the devaluing. You know, like if you sort of start falling out of the picture frame a bit and being a bit more of yourself and not this perfect image you've painted of yourself, they panic. So they will put you down to get you back into perfection. So that can start happening. There's the devaluing. And then if they think they've gone too far and they've pushed you away, the love bombing to get you back again. So that's another red flag. Again, if it starts being this one-way street, I always say I call it clean up on aisle 9. It's like if you feel like you're somebody's sort of secretary, mother, lover, lover as in more in a one-way sort of, even a concubine rather than a lover. So secretary, a mother, a concubine, a nurse, whatever it is, that you do the normal things in life, because the normal things are just beneath them because they're special. So you end up having to sort of take care of all the normal boring stuff. So if that starts to come into, if you start, you know, like the you take care of that, I'm too busy, or whatever it is, and you end up just sort of doing everything for them. And again, like I said, that having to nurture them and love them and get them through their tantrums and things like that. So that's another red flag. I'm just trying to think. The gaslighting is huge. The making you think you're going crazy. I mean, comes from that movie where I think it was Cary Grant or somebody starts tampering with the gas lighting in the apartment. Mm-hmm. And his wife was saying, oh, are the lights flickering? He'd be going, no. Mm-hmm. Crazy. So they will do things in front of you. You will see them. The body language. They will be hitting on another woman right in front of you. And you feel it and you know it, and you're looking at the body language and the responses, and then you say something, they're like, oh, you're crazy, you're just jealous. Oh God, I couldn't be with anybody like that. Well, the thing is with narcissists, they need supplies in the wings. So they are always working. They got women lined up behind you, so that if you start giving them what they want, it's like popping the new one immediately. That's why they move on so fast. It's called the discard. And it's so painful when you've invested so many years in a relationship, and then it finally ends. And then you hear, like, within a week or two, they're dating and they're posting on Facebook or whatever, and they're going, I've met the love of my life. And you're like, hang on a minute. I always say, you feel like you're at a slot machine like you keep investing those quarters, and you keep thinking there's got to be a payout.
At some point.
And then finally you give up and you walk away, and some other woman comes and sits in the seat, puts a quarter in, and gets the whole lot. It just looks like that, but they're not. They're going to get exactly what you had. Mm-hmm. You're just witnessing the beginning again, that love bombing, that idealizing you. So, but it's painful. It's very painful when you've invested a lot of time.
Well, and I know a lot of people are sometimes afraid to leave narcissistic relationships because they're afraid of, like, the smear campaign that could potentially come from that. Can you talk about that for a second?
Absolutely. I mean, there are, and again, I have to qualify this with the principles. If you go to regular therapy, a therapist will tell you a narcissist cannot change. Mm-hmm. They will also tell you a narcissist can't be left. And when you have triggered their narcissistic wound by walking away, they will either do the love bombing, the hoovering to get you back in, to suck you back in. And once they realize that's not working and that you've actually disconnected from them, it's like your lover becomes your worst enemy. Mm-hmm. And they will do anything to maintain their false self-esteem by putting you down. You are the one that was crazy. You're the one. And they can be very, very vicious in I mean, another one I should have mentioned, in the relationship with the narcissist, if you're, maybe in a marriage or something long term, they will have all of the control of the finances. You will have no access to them or control of them. You'll be given like pocket money almost in the relationship. Mm-hmm. Or if you're working, your work is yours, but whatever, it's a way of power and control. So they will often use money to destroy you, lie, hide, whatever it is to make you suffer because you wounded them. Mm. So that is part of it. And again, to sort of save face, they will say things like you're crazy or you're insane or whatever it is. And it's just coming from that very, very fragile ego. If you were healthy, you would just say, you know what, the relationship ended. We weren't a match anymore. We needed to separate, but you don't need to annihilate the other person. Mm-hmm. So it's coming from that fear-based little thought bubble they live in. So
one of my really good friends is going through a divorce now with a narcissist, and he I'm just speaking in general terms. He already has a girlfriend, and I'm pretty sure they live together already. And it's just like, and she's younger and doesn't have a clue. So,
well, it's all about image. You've got to make them look good, Mm-hmm. And so, if younger makes them feel like more virile and, whatever, attractive, whatever. I mean, that's why, most of these sort of, I was going to say older men, but older women can do it too. It's like the toy boy or the toy girl. It's like, you make me feel good. You make me look good. So they think. So it's not about connection.
Yeah. And there's no inner contentment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, it's just constantly, like you said, it's outside of them. Like they're constantly looking for the validation outside of them. My girlfriend I was joking. She's been divorced for quite a while, but she will occasionally screenshot me some of the text messages that he sends her. And I was like lady, you need to write a coffee table book and just put it out there. I know you're not the only one getting these, but like, it's like he's stuck in middle school and name calling and all this stuff. And it's just, and she's even yesterday was like, and this divorce has been 3 years ago, but she was like, am I crazy? Like, am I being this horrible mom? Or, you know, and it's just like, it's just interesting how old patterns, you know, we easily slip into those.
Absolutely. And we're not, you know, it's, as again, we were saying, it's a self-awareness. It's the ability to go, oh, old pattern sneaked in again.
Yes.
Not like oh God, I'm broken. Why is it still happening?
Right.
Yes.
I always have that Britney Spears song in my head, that whoops, I did it again.
Yes.
It's so light, instead of being like, oh God, I can't believe I did this.
Right.
It's like, oops, here I go. So, but I like what you were saying about the divorce. I'm about to launch a new program in about 6 weeks or so it's called A Spiritual Solution to to a painful divorce. Because when we are divorcing from a narcissist, as I said, you went from the loss, the grief that you go through of thinking this person was one way and then finding, I mean, you go in denial when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. You try and just look at the good, but when the full frontal sort of, you know, hit of what's really been going on in the relationship is incredibly painful. So you're not only losing the relationship you thought you had, you're losing that unit, that family unit that you had. You're losing the lifestyle you had. I mean, especially if they feel very vindictive, you will really lose any of that. And, so it's, when I was going through my divorce, I did a program with Debbie Ford. She was she did Dark Side of the Light Chasers, and she wrote a book called The Spiritual Divorce. And I trained with her because I took a course first, and it was so helpful. And then I trained with her to become a spiritual divorce coach. And especially when you're leaving a relationship with a narcissist, you feel so depleted, so robbed, so hoodwinked, so whatever, especially if they've had multiple affairs throughout the relationship and it all comes to light, that when we can actually extrapolate the gifts that we got, the spiritual gifts we got from that relationship, you can walk away feeling grateful, not, you know, beaten up and downtrodden. So that's, I think, a very, very important thing to do in a relationship like this.
Well, and post relationship too. I mean, they'll drag out the divorce as long as they possibly can. And, you know, still they'll kick you when you're down.
Yeah.
But like, I love that you're seeing the positive end of that, is that there's a gift. And so usually when a bad circumstance comes up for me or whatever, I'm like, what is the invitation in this? Like, how do I see this as an invitation? What am I being invited into? As opposed to, why me? Why now? You know? But like, I think back on my divorce. I think back on the horrible, anything I did while I was drinking, horrible. And the gift though, that I've learned is just amazing. And so I love that you're kind of pulling the positive out of kind of the evil.
Yeah, because you know, you want to feel like you came away with something.
Yes.
You came away with a lot. I mean, I used to think after my divorce, prior to my divorce, and we built our businesses together, but I had a really affluent lifestyle. I mean, I had a wonderful home overlooking the Pacific and tennis court and swimming pool and 7,000 square feet. And now I live in a mobile home, which I love.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it's beautiful.
But there was a time where I was, poor me, why am I the one that doesn't get to keep the house and the divorce, doesn't get to do this? But oh my God, I am so grateful I went through what I went through, because unless I'd gone through that, I would have never found my worth. I had to put myself out there. I had to create a new, I was a painter and I was an artist, so I was very happy to sort of stay in my studio and not get out there in the big world and really make a living. But now I have to put myself out there. I'm responsible for myself. And I'm so grateful for that. If I'd had the cushy divorce, I would never be who I am today.
Right.
I would never be, sharing what I share and helping the people I help. So it was absolutely a blessing without a doubt, and many other blessings too, but
and
sure.
I think most people that have come out of that situation would much rather live in a mobile home than living in a big grand mansion with a narcissist.
Yes. 100%.
Most of us would like to live in like a little box.
My favorite saying, and I should remember who said this, but is contentment is the greatest wealth of all. I mean, it's
absolutely,
it really is.
Even in 7,000 square foot, there wasn't enough space.
Right.
I would be like trying to run away and here in my little box, my safe, beautiful little box that I love, it's mine.
Yes.
And sanity here. My sons are older now, so they come and visit, and I have a partner that has his own house, and people say, why are you getting married? Why don't you live together? And we just have this wonderful relationship. It works for us. We have our own house. We spend a lot of time together, but I love my own little place. So
oh my gosh,
it's nice to sleep in your own bed at night so you can like starfish.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the whole bed to myself. I have two great big Maine Coon cats that come and like to lie on top of me.
So actually, you really don't. You pray have much.
But I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I laugh actually, because their brother and sister, I rescued them, but like they ended up, they were little fuzzy kittens, and then they grew into these giant, great big furry cats.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And I often joke that, the little girl is very codependent. She sits next to me at my desk all day long, loves me. I can't sit down for a second without going on my lap.
Mm-hmm.
That's her name is Luna. And then Hugo, the male cat, he's just a narcissist.
That is hilarious.
You love your animals.
And I just said, you know what? At least I'm not married or dating a narcissist. So I still have a narcissistic pet. So
right.
Could be worse.
That is hilarious. My two dogs fit the bill. I got a codependent and a narcissist. I do. I love it.
Yeah. So Del, can you tell us if our listeners want to get a hold of you and maybe research your program and
she has a podcast.
Yes.
And a book.
Podcast. And you have a book too, correct?
I have, I was part of a collaborative book that just came out last month, and it already made Amazon bestseller, which is fabulous. And 25 people wrote a chapter, and they shared their journey and then the tools that help them to deal with the adversity in their life. So my chapter I think it's chapter 9. It's called A Spiritual Solution to Low Self-Esteem. Finding your inner goddess through the principles, because the book is called Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools for Goddesses. So that's one book. I have another one coming out in another month or two, another collaborative book.
Okay.
Called Method by Muses, where I've got 4 pieces of some of my life story in that too, that are not in the other book. And then I'm working on writing my 2 books, one my memoir and the other one based on my 6-week program, because I've been running it now for I think almost 3 years, and I've just had such incredible results. I just want to be able to put it in a book. Yeah. It's going to have some of my story and really understanding what we've just shared today. And then I do one-on-one coaching. I do VIP days. Sometimes people say to me, I want the whole 6 weeks in a day. I don't want to wait 6 weeks. I want all the information now.
Right.
So that works out beautifully too. And then I just said I'm doing a different 6-week course called The Spiritual Solution to a Painful Divorce. So there's lots there. You can just go to Adey-Jones.com, and I also offer a 30-minute complimentary call if people want to see if there's, what I offer and what fits for them, or if we're even a fit. So
yeah. Well, I personally want to thank you for what you're doing, because there aren't, from what I've seen, there are people out there, but there aren't a lot of people who who are forthcoming and tell their stories. And so we're just so thankful that you're telling your story, you're helping people in these situations. You're just amazing. And so we're so thankful that you joined us today. Did you
the question.
Yeah.
But no, I just wanted to say, like, for those that are watching or just listening, let's just put it that way. If you're just listening to the podcast, you are missing out. You are like light. I mean, I'm just looking at you, you're just like light,
glowing.
And so I know, but it's like this energy and effervescence. And I don't know, there's just something about that. Normally what I like to ask people is, what would you tell your younger self of the hope that is out there?
Just what we touched on earlier, that our personalities are not set in stone. Mm-hmm. And we really are infinite potential. Anything we want to entertain about ourselves is true. We're not stuck in these little sort of like, and we've innocently created these personas, and they're just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the majority of us are these incredible spiritual beings with, and to just knowing that you've never broken. There's nothing lacking. You have everything inside you. You don't need the other person to complete you. That's what I would tell my younger self. And it was all innocent. It's all, and I'm looking here, it's the recovery gals rather. And it's like, when we're codependent, we're actually addicted to a relationship or another person. And when we see that we don't need the alcohol in our lives, or the drugs in our lives, or the other people in our lives, that we have everything within us, then that's when we really step into our power, and we really have fun in life. I mean, like fun. That's what I'm just
fun and full.
Yes,
fun. And I used to be terrified of falling down or looking imperfect, but now it's just like, God, no, messy is good. Just live it.
So good.
Playful out. And I always say I want to sort of like skid into my grave going, God, that was a hell of a ride.
I love that.
I don't want to crawl there going,
I love it.
I made it here safely. It's like, you die like that.
Yes, that's a great picture. I can't imagine just like making, like, did I do everything right? Did I make, is there one box left unchecked? Like, no, like, I love it. Skidding on in.
Yes. Well, Del, thank you so much for joining us today. We had a blast talking to you. You are absolutely amazing. And what a great episode.
Yeah.
I love this.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I'm already going to replay it. Thank you so much. It was like an honor to meet you.
Oh, it was my honor to be here, and you both too are glowing, and pleasure being here with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Del. We appreciate you.
Okay, take care. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today. If you found this encouraging, please like, share, and subscribe.
For more information on who we are and what we're about, please visit recoverygalspodcast.com.